Well, hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It has been a minute since I've sat and done more life lesson type content for you guys. There's just been so much going on in my life, and I've been making some videos that talk about sort of the transitions I'm going through and why I've been all over the place emotionally, all over the country geographically. But I was craving having one of these lessons with you guys, and so I thought I'd bring back the initial spirit of this channel and share some Myra wisdom with you all. So, the topic of today's video is the only thing that really matters. And that's a very dramatic topic, but I don't mean that this is the only thing that matters. This is not the, all you need is love, which I do think actually all you need is love. But my point was that I recently reread a book that I've read many times. I mean, this is a book, I'll pull it up actually because it's here, that I've read so many times in my life in different years. At one point when I was younger and living in New York City, I used to give this book to so many people. Like I would keep a stack of it in my apartment in New York. And I totally forgot that era when I would have friends visit and I had like stacks of all my favorite books and I would just encourage people to take them. But I recently reread this book and it took me a little while to get through it because I read a chapter here and a chapter there and I would be reading other things. And I find this like a comfort book. It's almost like when you just need a little bit of guidance. I feel like the voice of Michael Singer, just kind of the way he writes in this book, his tone is so soothing and so easy. But it just reminded me that the most important skill that you need essentially to navigate the tumultuous storm that is life is the ability to stay calm. And so I wanted this video to just be a reminder that even though I would have no problem going through this book with you all and telling you about some of the anecdotes and metaphors and lessons in every single chapter because I love it that much. But I think like the big picture when I step back and think about it is just the fact that he's basically telling you that if you can just remember in any given moment to, that you are not everything you think you are. You're not your hands. You're not the thoughts that are in your brain. You're not your face. You're like the person that hears the thoughts that go across your brain. And you're like the little spark of energy that is somehow fueling these hands to move. But, as we all know, when we see, people in moments of death, when there's no longer that conscious soul in the body, you're that spark of consciousness. You're this enigmatic energy and this thing living inside this body you've been given. And anytime that you feel like a problem is too big in life, or you feel an onslaught of emotions that are coming into your heart, into your chest, into your mind, stress, you can just take a step back, go back and like sit in that seat of your soul and remember that you're the consciousness and you're aware that this body is experiencing that emotion. So you can just stay calm when you feel really angry. You're not going to be able to like wave a wand and make the anger necessarily go away, but you can just immediately separate it from yourself. It can become this thing that you then realize, wow, the body I'm living in, that person, whose body I'm in, they're feeling these emotions emotionally, psychologically, and physically that are anger. And that's interesting. I wonder what it is that made that person feel angry in that moment. Is there a wound? Is there something that's just incompatible with that person and either another person or a situation? Sadness, like rather than become the sadness, you almost like befriend these things. Like each of these emotions can now become something that is like separate from you. And I think this is why I started really loving art and YouTube and music, because it kind of forces you to do that separating thing in a more tangible way. So it's very hard when you're feeling really upset to be like, I'm not upset. I am aware that this body is feeling upset right now. But when you write a song about how you feel, you've now created this detachment. Now there's this thing this thing that's on a piece of paper that represents that, like, storm of emotions you were feeling in anger. And now you can be separate from it, and you can like look at it and be like, what is this emotion about? What is the reason for it? Why is it there? How long is it going to last? How can it capture what it feels like? And I find that YouTube is the same thing, because what I'll do is I'll just like keep a camera running on a day that I think, oh, I'm doing something interesting. Maybe I should vlog it. I'll keep the camera running that day. And then that day might turn out however it's going to turn out. It might turn out to be like wonderful in the end, and the act of filming led me to do adventurous things. Or it might turn out terrible. It might have started off with really great promise because I was going to go to somewhere really interesting, and then, I had a car accident or a fender bender or a fight with my significant other or a fight with my mother or something. And the crazy thing is, because I have that footage, 3 days later, 3 weeks later, I no longer need to feel like I am that person. I literally find that vlogging makes me feel like I can actually separate my consciousness from like the body experience that I am having in this life. Because I look then at this footage, and it's technically, in a technical sense, I am told that this is footage of my life. But the crazy thing is that moment is gone. Like, that dynamic no longer exists. And now it's just this thing I can look at as a tool to study. What was I saying? What was my energy that day? What were my facial expressions? What was the tone of my voice? What were the facial expressions of the people around me? Did they look happy? Did they look sad? I have actually had videos where I've looked back and been able to see the dynamic between different people, and just see facial expressions in a way that I didn't notice at that moment in time, because at the moment in time, I was too attached to like being the person in that body. But the minute I have a separate video footage of it, I am now the consciousness living in my body, and that's like a movie for me to watch. And the crazy thing is, I've moved back to my home state, and I'm spending a couple of months doing soul searching. And I know that sounds very, funny to some people, but I have a video on it. Check my channel if you want to read all about or listen to all about why I'm on this soul searching journey at this point in my life. But I'm back in my home state, and I often will find myself on days that I'm free driving to places I lived in other eras of my life. And it might be elementary school, it might be middle school, it might be where my dad, lived. It might be where he died. It might be where I went to law school. Like, I'll just go to different places, and I walk around them, and I have a very similar feeling to like what I have when I watch vlogs. The minute I'm no longer in that moment or that phase of life, I feel like that phase of life or that moment is now like this archival footage in my memory bank. And I look at these things, and I like start to think about like what was what was that person, that human form that had that human body at that moment in time, at that age. What was that person feeling? What were they going through? What was the reason they were feeling this way? And I feel like I can then start to try to dissect it and use it as this really, really powerful evidence, and honestly, this really powerful tool to learn about myself. So I've given this very roundabout sort of talk about how the most important skill is staying calm. And that's really, I don't want to say that that's like the thesis of his book, but I do think a lot of his book is telling people to just relax, just take a deep breath, relax. Because what he's essentially kind of telling you to do is remember, you are actually not the person you identify by your name, by your career, by your face, by where you were born, and the life story that you're constantly telling. You're really the observer of a person who has like come to do that. So for some reason, like I have Myra as like this person through whom my little, seed of consciousness gets to learn about life. And she's like going to be the greatest case study for me. But I'm not necessarily her, right? I'm just the person. I'm just this like magical, probably like sexless, energy living in this body that's getting to use Myra as her case study. And so anytime Myra feels anything, anytime Myra feels any emotion, anger, sadness, instead of over-identifying with it and making my whole identity about what I'm feeling and why, if I can just take a step back from it and use her as a great case study just through which to understand sort of the universal human conditions then I can like let go of all those moments and not be so judgmental of them and be much more forgiving of them because they're all natural. Like those emotions are coming up for a reason. Myra's experiencing certain things because of wounds that she has and scars that she has from her childhood, but she doesn't have to be those things, and she can't be because Myra's like a little soul and she's going to be floating off to some other part of the universe someday. But it makes you just think of her like a character in a book or a movie or a character you see in a movie. And we all identify with so many characters from books and movies because we understand the like inner turmoils of that character and why they are acting the way they are acting in a given situation. And I think this is like another point I've thought about a lot over the years, which is that really good art, whether it's lyrics of a song, a character in a novel, a character in a movie, I think when those characters really resonate, it's because there is an honesty that people are buying into about why a person who has lived that body experience on the planet, where they got certain wounds, certain imprints, and had certain context to their life, why they are now acting the way they are acting, good or bad. When there's an honesty and a relationship between what you're saying that this person has lived through, how they've seen the world around them, and then the things that they're doing in that story or the things they're feeling in that song or the things that they're, the way they're behaving, when there's a synchronicity between those two things, you believe that that is an honest representation. And even if that person's life is totally different from you, and even if they see the world totally different from you, that connection is what makes you resonate with their story. And so, again, I think you can think of pretty much all the people you see around you, whether they are people from art or whether they're actually people like in the world around you, as kind of these characters that allow you to understand like what it is to be a human. And you can do that while not necessarily feeling like you are only a human, because you're actually greater than a human. You're this consciousness that can look at human beings to try to understand something greater than the human condition. So I know that that is, a bit all over the place, but I just wanted to get this talk done this morning because I just happened to be thinking about it, how the only thing that really matters is your ability to stay calm. And I said it's the only thing that really matters because it kind of just harkens back to this idea that you are you're an untethered soul. You're not tethered to like this human form, this planet, your lived experience. You're like this beautiful floating piece of consciousness. And if you can just stay calm anytime you feel anything, and remember that, even in the high moments, even in the moments of fleeting elation, if you can just remember that, then you can actually live with more equanimity. You don't get so, you don't have to rely on the highs being so high. You don't have to wallow when the lows are so low. You can just become an observer of the life that you're living and just think of these eyes as like the binoculars through which your consciousness gets to like see this magical form that is like Earth with these interesting creatures who are humans and kind of understand what it is to be a human being. And yet you can just remember, I'm kind of like, testing out a human body, but my life's not constrained to the human experience. So this is less of like a concrete, like how to tackle this kind of problem, but I just wanted to give you guys like a bite-sized video that kind of has my take on one of the most important lessons from this book, which is the most important skill you can kind of have in any situation, in a board meeting when emotions are running high, in a fight with a family after someone's died, when you have touchy issues of probates and wills and estates, when you're having a fight with your significant other or your parent that you can't forgive. Like if you can take that step and take a breath and relax and stay calm and remember, this isn't even me. I could have been in another body. I could have had another name. I could have had another face. But like this character who has this name and this body and this face and has lived these things is really upset about this situation for XYZ reason. Oh, that makes sense. What a shame. Hope it passes soon. Well, anyway, I think it's a great skill. The more you learn it, the more you practice it, I think the more you can just start like having peace with this weird experience of waking up every day and having this like magical thinking being in your head and being like, what am I doing here? Where am I? You could just have peace with it and have fun with it and just think of all of life like this fantastic movie set that you're like kind of using to learn. So that's my message for you. I hope it helps you. It's a fairly simple one, but stay calm as often as you can. Practice that skill of recognizing high emotions, whatever they are, whenever they are there, and then figuring out how quickly you can make that switch from being in the emotion, being identified with it, to actually stepping out and seeing the person and the emotion as like a separate thing from yourself. And if doing something silly like vlogging your life with a camera or writing poems and songs helps you to like do that separation, do it. Do it, because the more you do it, the more free you're going to feel and the more light you're going to start to feel, and you're not going to feel so bogged down by the chains of some random human body's experience. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I hope you all have an amazing week, and I cannot wait to catch you in the next one. See you then. Bye.